Hello, friends. Today we delve into the haunting story of Maya, a woman trapped in a mirror of her own making. Each crack reflects not just her scars, but the toxic echoes of past relationships that shaped her. Behind the surface lies a chilling truth about identity and the cost of silence. Watch closely. Maya stood before the mirror. Its surface crackled like the scars that traced her skin, each one a reminder of the battles fought in silence. The room felt heavy with unspoken truths, and as she gazed into the fragmented reflection, a deep sense of disorientation washed over her. The face looking back was familiar, yet foreign, a collage of memories and pain she had been too afraid to confront. How had she allowed herself to become so splintered? The voices of past relationships echoed in her mind, toxic whispers that twisted her worth into something unrecognizable. She could almost hear Jared's laughter, laced with cruelty, as he belittled her insecurities, his words planting seeds of doubt in her mind. Each interaction had chipped away at her spirit, leaving behind a mosaic of fear and shame. "Am I really this broken?" she whispered to herself, her voice barely above a murmur. The question hung in the air like a dense fog, thick with uncertainty. She reached out, her fingertips brushing the glass, feeling the coolness seep into her skin. The reflection shimmered, distorting her features, amplifying the fractures in her identity. Could one see themselves as whole through a shattered lens? Maya took a step back, heart racing. She was both the observer and the observed, wrestling with the weight of her own vulnerability. Each crack in the mirror seemed to reflect a piece of her. The girl who once believed love meant losing herself. The woman who had fought to reclaim her narrative. The internal battle raged within her, a tempest of emotions battling for dominance. Fear clawed at her insides, urging her to retreat into the safety of silence, while a flicker of courage whispered that perhaps it was time to feel. But how could she allow herself to be seen? The thought was paralyzing. She had spent too long hiding behind walls built from shame, pretending that her pain was an inconvenience rather than a part of her story. Yet each scar on her body told a tale of resilience, of survival against the odds. They were not marks of failure, but symbols of the battles she had endured, battles that had left her wiser, even if they had also left her broken. With a deep breath, Maya stepped closer to the mirror. Studying her reflection with newfound curiosity, she searched for the girl who had once embraced life with open arms, who danced through moments without the weight of expectation. Was she still there, hidden beneath layers of hurt and fear? As she stood there, the tension in her chest began to ease, if only slightly. She allowed the tears to flow freely, each drop a release of the pent-up sorrow she had carried for far too long. Her reflection blurred, and in that moment of raw honesty, she felt a surge of clarity. This was not just about the scars. It was about recognizing the beauty in her imperfection. The question lingered, weaving itself into the fabric of her thoughts. Could she accept this fractured self and still find a way to embrace the entirety of who she was? Could she heal from the past and emerge, not as a perfectly polished version of herself, but as a mosaic, beautiful in her complexity, resilient in her scars? With that thought, Maya stepped back from the mirror, a small spark igniting within her. She was ready to begin the journey of acceptance, ready to confront the shards of her past. For the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope, a belief that perhaps she could learn to love the pieces of herself that had once felt so unlovable. The room was softly lit, shadows caressing the walls as Maya sat on the edge of the therapist's couch, her heart drumming a frantic rhythm in her chest. Lena, her compassionate guide, sat opposite her presence warm yet steady, inviting Maya to delve into the depths she so often avoided. Maya looked down at her hands, fingers fidgeting nervously in her lap. They were open, palms facing up, vulnerable and exposed. A symbol of her willingness to share, yet also a reminder of the fear that gripped her tightly. The fear that her scars would reveal too much. What if they see me as broken? She thought, the internal dialogue spiraling into a tempest of self-doubt. Take your time, Lena encouraged softly, her voice a soothing balm against the storm raging within. You're safe here. Taking a deep breath, Maya felt her chest constrict. The memories of her past flooded back, echoes of toxic relationships and whispered insults that had carved deep lines of shame across her identity. I don't know where to start, she admitted, her voice quivering, as if each word was a fragile glass ornament ready to shatter. Start with what hurts, Lena suggested, her eyes a pool of understanding. Maya trembled, her thoughts colliding. It's just, I feel like I should be stronger, like I should be perfect. But I'm not. I'm so afraid of what people will think if they see me as I truly am, she confessed, the words tumbling out in a rush, revealing the rawness she usually kept hidden. Why do you think you need to be perfect? Lena asked, leaning forward slightly, her gaze steady and probing. A lump formed in Maya's throat as she grappled with the question. Because if I'm perfect, maybe I'll be loved. Maybe I won't feel this constant ache inside, she replied, her voice cracking. The room felt heavy with her admission, each breath a reminder of her struggle. Maya's eyes flickered towards the mirror on the wall, reflecting her image back at her, a fractured, uncertain version of herself. How can I accept myself when I see all these flaws, all this pain? She felt the tears welling, blurring her vision. It's like I'm afraid to show my scars. I think they mean I'm unlovable, she whispered, the weight of her fear palpable. Lena nodded knowingly, her expression a blend of compassion and conviction. But what if those scars tell a different story? What if they symbolize survival rather than weakness? Maya's heart raced at the thought, the tension within her swelling to a peak. Could it be true? Could her scars be marks of resilience instead of reminders of failure? Yet doubt clawed at her, battling against the flicker of hope. Can I really trust my vulnerability? She mused aloud, the question hanging in the air, heavy and unresolved. As silence enveloped them, Maya sensed a shift within, a tentative crack in her defenses. Perhaps revealing her pain would not mean losing herself, but rather reclaiming a part of her that had long been shrouded in darkness. Open hands, she thought, the symbol crystallizing in her mind, an invitation to receive healing and to let go of the burdens she had carried for too long. Slowly, tentatively, she began to share her story, her voice trembling but growing steadier. I was always told to be strong, to hide my pain. But now, I'm starting to realize, maybe being open, being vulnerable, is the real strength. With each word, she felt the walls around her heart begin to fracture, the light seeping in through the cracks. The journey to self-acceptance would not be easy. But for the first time, the possibility of liberation flickered on the horizon. And as she spoke, the question lingered. How would her past influence her perception of herself? And could she truly embrace the beauty of her vulnerability? Maya sat in the softly lit therapy room, her hands tightly clasped in her lap, as if holding on to the remnants of her fragmented self. The air was thick with silence, interrupted only by the faint ticking of the clock on the wall, a steady reminder that time was passing. Yet here she was, trapped in a moment of hesitation. Lena, her therapist, sat across from her, eyes warm and inviting, a gentle smile playing on her lips. Yet there was an unspoken challenge in the air. "How are you feeling today, Maya?" Lena asked, her voice soothing. Yet it felt like a delicate probe into the depths of Maya's guarded heart. Maya's heart raced in response, the familiar tension coiling in her stomach. She wanted to say she was okay, to deflect the question with a practiced smile. But the truth felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. It's okay to feel scared, Maya. It's part of the healing process. Trust is hard, especially when you've been through so much. Maya felt the warm trickle of tears welling in her eyes, blurring her vision. She quickly blinked them away, fearing the release that came with vulnerability. She didn't want to cry. She didn't want to appear weak. The fight against her own emotions was fierce, a tumult she had often waged alone, locked away behind walls of self-preservation. But Lena's presence was disarming. Perhaps it was the way she held space, her hands resting openly on her knees, radiating acceptance. A silent invitation to let go. Maya caught a glimpse of the symbol she had long resisted. Open hands. They whispered to her, encouraging her to take that leap. "Can I trust you?" she thought, but didn't dare voice the question. The fear of being further wounded loomed large, like a shadow stretching across her heart. "Let's take it one step at a time," Lena suggested, her voice a balm. "You don't need to reveal everything all at once. Just share what feels safe for you today." In that moment, Maya felt the flicker of possibility. Perhaps she could start to peel back the layers, to reveal the wounds she had kept hidden for so long. What if there was healing in that exposure? What if she could find strength in her scars instead of shame? Yet the fear still gripped her. Could she truly afford to trust? Maya took a deep breath, feeling her heart race. I remember a time when I thought love was supposed to feel different, but it only hurt. I don't want to feel that pain again. Lena nodded, her expression empathetic. It's okay to fear the past. But remember, facing it is what allows us to heal. You're not alone in this. The air hung heavy with the weight of her unspoken fears, but something shifted within Maya. She could feel the tiniest sliver of hope reaching through the cracks of her heart, a whisper that perhaps vulnerability could be a gateway to liberation. As the question lingered in the air, can I allow myself to trust and begin healing by revealing my deepest wounds? Maya's fingers slowly began to uncurl, the tension releasing ever so slightly. For the first time, she felt the warmth of her own open hands reaching toward the possibility of connection, a tentative gesture toward healing, and maybe, just maybe, a step toward reclaiming her true self. Maya sat on the edge of the therapist's plush, inviting sofa, her fingers entwined tightly, betraying the turmoil that swirled beneath her calm exterior. The room was dimly lit, soft amber light spilling from a lamp in the corner, casting warm shadows that danced along the walls. It was a cocoon, yet somehow it felt suffocating, as if the very space demanded her to confront the shadows she had long hidden. Lena, her therapist, leaned forward slightly, her eyes steady and compassionate. "What do you see when you look in the mirror, Maya?" she asked, her voice a gentle nudge, coaxing the truths buried deep within. Maya's gaze flickered to the floor, as if she could avoid the reflection and the weight of the question. "I see." She hesitated, the words caught in her throat like thorns. "I see someone who needs to be better. Someone who can't afford to be flawed." "Better?" Lena echoed, her tone measured, inviting. What does better mean to you? Maya clenched her jaw, frustration bubbling to the surface. It means not being broken. It means being happy. If I could just... Her voice faltered, and she turned her gaze back to Lena, daring to let the vulnerability seep through. If I could just erase the pain. Lena nodded, allowing silence to stretch between them, filled only by the rhythm of Maya's breath. But what if the pain is part of you? What if your scars tell the story of your survival, not your failure? The question hung in the air, heavy and electric. Maya felt the familiar walls of resistance rise up around her, a fortress built on years of denial. But if I accept my imperfections, doesn't that mean I'm admitting I'm not worthy of love? That I'm unlovable? Not at all, Lena replied softly, her voice a balm against Maya's fears. It's the very act of embracing your imperfections that paves the way to real happiness. Perfection is an illusion. It's what keeps you confined. What if I told you that your scars can be your strength? Maya's heart raced. You don't understand, she said, her voice trembling as she fought against the tide of truth pushing to break through. I can't let go of the idea that I should be perfect. Maybe, Lena said, her gaze unwavering. Perfection isn't your goal. Maybe happiness lies in the acceptance of your reality, in the acknowledgement of your pain. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. Look at your reflection. What do you see? Maya instinctively turned toward a small mirror hanging on the wall, the surface slightly smudged, reflecting not just her image, but the turmoil within. She barely recognized the woman staring back at her. The tired eyes caught in a cycle of fear and doubt, the lines of worry etched across her brow. I see someone who's fractured, Maya whispered, the admission tasting bitter on her tongue. Someone who's trying to hold it all together. What if those fractures are not weaknesses? Lena prompted gently. What if they are the very facets of your identity that can lead you to deeper connections and genuine joy? Maya felt her chest tighten, the familiar tug of denial weighing her down. But what if I'm just broken? The word hung in the air between them like an accusation. Lena smiled softly, an invitation to explore rather than condemn. We all are, in our own ways. It's not about being whole. It's about being real. Can you let go of the illusion of perfection? Can you see that it's okay to feel pain? Tension coiled within Maya, a tempest of fear and longing. She wanted to scream, to retreat back into the safety of her illusions. Yet deep down, a flicker of hope ignited, a yearning to reclaim her identity, to break free from the chains of expectation. As the silence deepened, Maya's reflection in the mirror shifted. She caught a glimpse of something. Her scars were not simply marks of brokenness. They were reminders of battles fought and survived. A voice inside her whispered, "What if I could find peace in my imperfections?" With a shaky breath, she turned back to Lena, her heart racing with the weight of the question hanging in the air. Can acceptance really lead to happiness? This time, as she faced the mirror again, she dared to imagine that maybe, just maybe, her scars could be the path to wholeness, rather than a barrier to it. Maya sat across from Arya in a warm, softly lit room, the glow of the late afternoon sun streaming through the window, casting gentle patterns on the carpet. The air was thick with an unspoken intensity, a palpable blend of trepidation and anticipation. As she adjusted her notes, Maya felt a flutter of anxiety in her stomach. Arya, with her confident posture and open demeanor, seemed to radiate strength, a stark contrast to the doubt tangled within Maya's heart. Thank you for agreeing to do this, Maya said, her voice a whisper, as if afraid to disturb the fragile serenity of the moment. Arya smiled, her eyes reflecting kindness and understanding. Of course, Maya. I'm honored to share my story, Arya replied, a hint of warmth in her tone. Yet there was an unmistakable gravity in her gaze. Maya took a deep breath, battling the self-doubt that clung to her like a shadow. You've come so far, Arya. I can't help but wonder. She hesitated, her fingers fidgeting with the edges of her notes. How did you find the strength to rise from the ashes? Arya's expression shifted, a flicker of recognition passing across her features. It was a long journey, one filled with pain and healing. I learned that our scars— She paused, tapping a fingertip lightly against her wrist, where a faint line told a story of survival— are not just marks of suffering. They're proof of our resilience. Maya's heart raced. Could she really believe that her own scars could symbolize strength too? A haunting question lingered in her mind. Could I believe that my wounds might become a source of growth? As Arya delved deeper into her story, recounting nights of despair and moments of breakthrough, Maya felt herself being pulled in. Arya's words painted vivid images, the darkness that enveloped her, the small flickers of hope that ignited her spirit. The warmth in Arya's voice wrapped around Maya like a comforting blanket. Yet it also stirred a tempest inside her. Every time I thought I was too broken to heal, Arya continued, her voice steady and resolute, I found pieces of myself in the cracks. I learned to embrace my imperfections. Maya clenched her jaw, a well of conflicting emotions swirling within. She admired Arya's courage, but beneath that admiration lay an unsettling fear. What if her own path was shrouded in a darkness she couldn't escape? What if her scars were just a reminder of her brokenness? Arya must have sensed the shift in Maya's energy because she leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. You're not alone in this, Maya. Every survivor carries their history, their pain. But it's how we choose to carry them that matters. A wave of warmth washed over Maya, a flicker of hope sparking within her. Here was Arya, a living testament that healing was possible, that vulnerability could breed strength. Yet doubt still clawed at her heart, whispering malicious thoughts that threatened to drown the burgeoning inspiration. But what if I fail? What if I can't accept my scars? Maya's voice trembled, the question escaping her lips before she could rein it in. Arya smiled gently, her eyes glistening with understanding. Failure is part of the journey, Maya. Embracing your scars doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you're brave enough to show up as you are. Vulnerability is not a weakness. It's a declaration of strength. As Arya spoke, Maya's gaze drifted to the window, the light shimmering like hope in her heart. She thought of her own scars, those invisible marks etched deep within. Each one a testament to her survival, each one a story waiting to be told. In that moment, she felt a shift, a fragile yet significant stirring within her spirit. As she looked back at Arya, a powerful connection blossomed between them. Two survivors navigating the tumultuous waters of healing together. Yet the question lingered, suspended in the air like the fading sunlight. Could I truly believe that my scars hold the key to my strength and growth? Just as Arya believes. Maya sighed softly, the weight of her uncertainty mingling with a newfound sense of possibility, the tension within her gradually transforming into a flicker of hope. Perhaps this was the beginning of her journey toward understanding, a journey where vulnerability could lead to liberation, and where her scars could be embraced, not hidden away. Maya stood in the dimly lit café, its usual warmth swallowed by the chilling aura that enveloped her as she spotted Jared across the room. The clinking of cups and quiet laughter faded into an oppressive silence, the air growing thick with unspoken words. Her heart hammered in her chest, a caged bird desperate for escape, as she felt the familiar clutches of fear wrap around her throat. Memories surged like a tide, his voice, sharp and cutting, echoing in her mind, entwined with moments of doubt and shame. She took a deep breath, trying to ground herself as she approached him. The sharp tang of coffee mixed with her rising anxiety, a bitter reminder of everything he represented. Jared looked up, his expression shifting from surprise to a smirk that set her teeth on edge. She stood frozen for a moment, the weight of her past pressing down like a heavy cloak. "Look who decided to show up," he said, his tone laced with disdain. "Thought you'd gone soft in therapy." The words struck her like shards of broken glass, each one a reminder of her fractured self, the pieces she had fought so hard to gather. But instead of flinching away from the pain, she clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. "I'm not soft, Jared," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm stronger than I've ever been." His laughter rang out, a cruel sound that reverberated through her. "Stronger? Is that what you call running away from the truth? You'll always be that scared girl hiding behind your walls." The memory of her past, the nights spent second-guessing herself, the apologies that rolled off her tongue like an involuntary response, sliced through her. But with each insult, something inside her began to shift. She could feel the fire of anger igniting within her, pushing back against the shadows of fear. "Maybe I've been hiding," she said, her voice rising, trembling with the weight of her emotions. "But I'm done being your victim. Your words don't define me anymore." His smirk faltered, and for a moment, she saw a flicker of confusion in his eyes. The power dynamics she had always feared began to crumble. She took a step closer, the space between them charged with tension, every heartbeat echoing the question that hung heavy in the air. "Can I break free from the chains of my past?" "You think you've changed?" he scoffed, his bravado faltering. "You'll never escape who you are. Watch me." With those words, Maya pulled from the depths of her pain, letting it fuel her courage. She could feel the remnants of their toxic relationship shattering around her like glass, sharp, painful, yet liberating. Each fragment represented a piece of her past, a truth she could now confront without fear. As she spoke, clarity washed over her, illuminating the darkness that Jared had cast over her life. "I can be imperfect, and that doesn't make me unworthy. I refuse to be ashamed of my scars." His silence was deafening, a stark contrast to the tumult within her. She watched as the mask of superiority slipped from his face, revealing nothing but insecurity beneath. The confrontation felt less like a battle and more like a rite of passage. "You think this is tough?" he finally spat. "You'll come crawling back." But her heart, once so fragile, surged with newfound strength. "I'm not crawling back. I'm walking away. Into my life, my truth." The air crackled between them, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as she turned on her heel, the weight of his presence receding like a fading shadow. The question lingered in her mind, unanswered yet powerful. Could she truly be free from the grip of her past? As she stepped out of the café, the world outside seemed brighter, each breath a testament to her resilience. She had confronted the toxic remnants of her life, and in that moment, she felt the shards of her broken identity fall away, leaving her not as a victim, but as a survivor, ready to embrace the messy beauty of her imperfect self. Maya stood before the full-length mirror, its surface smudged with fingerprints and the faintest trace of dust. She had never paid much attention to this reflection, allowing it to be a mere background to her thoughts. Today, however, something stirred within her, a compulsion to look deeper, to confront the version of herself she had so long avoided. Her heart raced as she edged closer, the cold glass inviting yet intimidating. The reflection revealed a young woman with shadows beneath her eyes, remnants of countless sleepless nights spent wrestling with her own thoughts. She hesitated, the weight of self-doubt pressing down on her chest like a heavy stone. The familiar inner voice whispered harsh judgments, echoing the lies that she had internalized. You're not enough. Your scars make you unlovable. Maya took a deep breath, the air tasting like fear, a bitter reminder of all she had been through. What if I'm broken beyond repair? She asked herself, the question hanging in the air like a thick fog. She felt the urge to turn away, to retreat into the safety of denial once more. But something inside her rebelled against the urge. She pressed her palm against the mirror, as if seeking a connection with the fractured image before her. Instead of the facade of perfection she had long chased, she saw the truth laid bare. A collage of scars, both visible and hidden. Each mark told a story, a betrayal, a moment of despair, a gasp of pain. They were reminders of battles fought, yet they felt like chains binding her to the past. Can I truly accept this? The question echoed in her mind, mingling with the fear that had held her captive for so long. She felt the tears pricking at the corners of her eyes, the welling emotion threatening to spill over. It was a sensation she had sought to suppress, to bury beneath layers of stoicism and avoidance. But now, in this raw moment, she found herself standing at the precipice of something new. Something terrifying, yet strangely liberating. As the tears began to fall, Maya noticed something change. With each drop, she felt the weight on her chest lift, if only slightly. The act of allowing herself to feel, to truly see her imperfections, marked a turning point. It was as if the mirror had transformed from a mere reflection into a portal of acceptance. I am not just my scars, she whispered, her voice trembling but growing stronger with each repetition. I am the sum of my experiences, my pain, my vulnerability. She saw the flicker of hope in her own eyes, a recognition of the strength it took to simply be human. The concept of perfection, she realized, was a cruel illusion, a mirage that led her deeper into isolation. Here, in this moment of clarity, she understood that acknowledging her flaws did not signify weakness. Rather, it was the foundation upon which she could rebuild. Yet, lingering in the background was the haunting question: will I ever be enough? It loomed like a specter, refusing to be banished completely. Maya looked back into the mirror, searching for answers within her fragmented self, the tension palpable. The first step had been taken. She had faced her reflection, allowing herself to be seen in all her complexity. But the journey was far from over. Would she have the courage to embrace this new understanding, to trust in her own capacity for healing? As she wiped the remnants of her tears away, she felt the glimmer of possibility ignite within her, her heart whispering. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could learn to love the imperfect reflection staring back at her. Maya sat in the softly lit therapy room, her fingers nervously tapping against her knee. The walls, adorned with abstract art that hinted at chaos and serenity, seemed to close in on her as she faced Lena, her compassionate therapist. The air was thick with unspoken emotions, and the gentle hum of a distant heater provided the only sound. Today, I want to explore something important, Lena said, her voice steady yet inviting. The symbol of open hands. What does it mean to you? Maya shifted in her chair, feeling a wave of discomfort wash over her. The idea of open hands stirred something deep within, an unsettling mixture of longing and fear. She could picture them, hands extended, palms facing up, ready to receive and give. But the thought of being that vulnerable sent a shiver down her spine. Wouldn't that mean she had to let go of her defenses, her carefully constructed walls? I guess it's about acceptance, Maya offered hesitantly, her gaze focused on the floor. But I don't know if I can really accept myself. I feel like there's so much I need to hide. Lena leaned forward slightly, her expression one of gentle encouragement. And what if those hands were a metaphor for support, for opening yourself to healing? What would it look like if you were willing to explore that? Maya's heart raced. The internal conflict flared brightly. The instinct to retract, to fold her arms defensively, was at odds with a deep yearning to reach out. But what if I open myself and it hurts more? What if I'm not worthy of that support? Pain is a part of healing, Maya, but it doesn't define your worth. Lena's eyes sparkled with empathy, the kind that made Maya feel seen. What if you could see those scars as a testament to your strength, to the journey you've already taken? Maya's breath caught. The image of her hands, open and exposed, danced in her mind. Could she risk that? The thought of vulnerability felt akin to standing on the edge of a precipice, the ground beneath her trembling. Yet, in that moment, she also imagined the warmth that could flow from acceptance, the possibility of receiving help instead of pushing it away. Open hands, she whispered, testing the phrase like a prayer. It feels scary, but also hopeful. Exactly, Lena replied, a smile spreading across her face. Hope lives in vulnerability. It's where connections begin and healing takes root. Maya's eyes flickered upward, meeting Lena's gaze. She could see it. The light of understanding, the embrace of trust waiting just beyond her reach. But doubt wormed its way into her heart. What if I'm just fooling myself? What if this idea of openness just leads me back to more pain? Lena was silent for a moment, allowing the weight of Maya's words to settle. What if, instead, it opens you to a life where you are authentically you? A life where your imperfections are celebrated rather than hidden. The question hung in the air like a delicate thread, pulling at the corners of Maya's guarded heart. She thought of her scars, each a story etched into her skin, a marker of survival rather than shame. Could she allow herself to see them as reminders of resilience? Maya took a deep breath, envisioning her hands uncurling, palms upward, of letting go of her fears. A flicker of something like hope ignited within her. Maybe I'm ready to try, she said, her voice steadier now, though still tinged with uncertainty, but it feels like such a leap. It is, Lena affirmed, but leaps can lead to flight, and you don't have to do it alone. I'm here with you. In that moment, the space between them shimmered with potential. Maya felt a shift, a kind of thawing in her heart. The open hand symbol was no longer just an image, it was an invitation to healing, to connection, to a life where vulnerability opened doors instead of closing them. As they sat in silence, the question of her past still lingered, but now it felt less like a chain and more like a bridge. Could she redefine what it meant to connect? Could she truly embrace the journey ahead without the shadows of her past haunting every step? In that moment of soft illumination, Maya realized that the answer was beginning to take shape within her heart. The path of trust was fraught with uncertainty. But perhaps it was the only way to step into the fullness of who she was becoming. Maya stood at the front of the small auditorium, the warm light softly illuminating her face. Yet the shadows danced in her heart. She felt their weight pressing down, a cacophony of self-doubt and fear swirling in her mind. The audience, a mixture of familiar faces and strangers, shifted in their seats, their eyes expectant. Yet she could almost hear the whispers of judgment echoing in her ears. Could she really stand here, bare and vulnerable, and share the deepest parts of her story? She took a deep breath, feeling the coolness of the air, a stark contrast to the heat rising from her cheeks. The podium felt like a lifeline, yet it also anchored her to the ground, reminding her of the fears she had battled for so long. What if they saw her scars? Not just the physical ones, but the emotional ones too. What if they didn't understand? The thought of rejection was a shroud wrapping around her, threatening to suffocate her bravery. But then she remembered Lena's voice, calm and steady in her mind. Your scars are signs of survival, Maya. They are not your shame. They are your strength. The words echoed in her heart, igniting a flicker of resolve. With a steadying breath, she allowed herself to feel the tension shift, transforming that fear into something that felt much more alive. A force of courage. Maya looked out at the crowd, their faces a tapestry of empathy and encouragement. She let her gaze linger on a woman in the front row, who smiled gently, and for a moment, it felt as if they were connected by an unspoken understanding. She was not alone in this. The realization swelled within her, filling the cracks of her self-doubt with hope. I stand before you today with my scars, Maya began, her voice steady, yet trembling with the rawness of her truth. Not to hide them, but to show you that they are part of my journey. She pulled up her sleeve, exposing the faint lines etched on her arm, remnants of battles fought against toxic relationships. These are not marks of shame. They are symbols of strength. Each scar tells a story of survival, of moments that broke me, but ultimately taught me how to heal. Her heart raced, but as she spoke, the words flowed with an honesty that surprised her. The fear that had gripped her began to dissipate, replaced by a growing sense of empowerment. I used to believe that my worth was tied to my ability to be perfect, to be unbreakable. But I learned the hard way that true strength lies in vulnerability. She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the audience, letting the silence settle like a comforting blanket. Every scar reminds me that I am not defined by my pain, but by my ability to rise from it. The warmth of acceptance enveloped her, and she could sense the shift in the room. People nodded, some leaned forward, their eyes wide with understanding. Perhaps, just perhaps, her story resonated with them too. Maya's heart fluttered as she thought of Jared, the toxic partner whose words had once chained her to self-loathing. Could he witness her transformation now, standing tall? The question hung in the air as she pushed through the rising wave of emotion. I encourage each of you to embrace your own scars. They are not limitations. They are proof that you have survived, that you have fought, and that you are still here. Her voice crescendoed, a powerful affirmation of resilience. Let's redefine what it means to be whole, not through the absence of pain, but through the acceptance of our imperfections. She closed her eyes briefly, feeling the swell of support from the audience, the strength of their collective energy rooting her on. As she opened her eyes, she saw tears glistening in some, courage igniting in others. In that moment, A profound connection blossomed. Shared stories, shared struggles. Could they all find power in their vulnerabilities together? The question lingered, an invitation to embrace the rawness of their experiences. Maya smiled, feeling lighter yet more grounded than ever before. Let's create a community where our scars are celebrated, where vulnerability becomes our strength. And as she stepped back, the applause erupted, not just for her, but for all the scars that represented survival, hope, and the beautiful journey toward acceptance.